Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, I have here a video with Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov's speech at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe in North Macedonia, where he eventually arrived with Zakharova. So I will do something I've never done before. I will try to let the whole video go with his speech, and then we are going to analyze it to see what exactly he said. This speech ended about 10 minutes ago, today on the 30th of November 2023. Right now it's almost 8 o'clock Eastern Time, United States of America. And let's go and watch this, and we're going to analyze it afterwards. Ready, set, and let's see if it works. Go. That's the way it starts. It doesn't have like an introduction. It starts, 5 seconds into it, but that's the way it is. I have to go.
In this connection, the OSCE is nearing this anniversary in a petty state, and its prospects are unclear. After the end of the Cold War, we had a historical opportunity to use the uniting potential of OSCE for the organization to become a platform for the broadest European cooperation, to become a central element in the forming inclusive architecture of equal security in all three dimensions. Within the military and political basket, the member states ratified a whole number of documents aimed at creating a Europe without borders in the broadest sense of the term. The documents also provided for inadmissibility of strengthening one's own security at the expense of others. That included the 99 Charter and the Astana Charter of 2010. Russia, on its part, did its best, made maximum efforts to reach that, with multiple initiatives, including those on creating common space, security space based on cooperation. Unfortunately, the West's political elites that hegemonize the right to decide the fates of humanity decided in favor of NATO, in favor of the philosophy of restraint, in favor of zero-sum games. One of the key components of such logic was NATO's expansion to the east.
So it seems like he's going to talk about NATO and the West being the big problem, creating this garbage in Ukraine. So far, that's the direction he goes.
With the collapse of the Warsaw Pact.
Can you leave me alone, please? Thank you.
Although what seemed like the end of the bipolar world actually took away the very point of existence of the NATO bloc.
Oops, I think I saw Zakharova's melon right there in the back. There, right there.
In 1999, NATO committed an act of blatant aggression against Yugoslavia, an OSCE member and a UN member. 2008, in breach of Resolution 1244 of the Security Council, Kosovo was taken away from Serbia without any referendum. The same NATO member states that were members of the OSCE at the Bucharest summit promised membership to Tbilisi and Kiev, with one simple goal of making them go against Russia. After the revolution of roses, Georgian President Saakashvili used his carte blanche right away in August 2008. He ordered that Ossetian cities be bombed and peacekeepers there be attacked. Provocation was prepared by the United States that had launched a program, training and arming program there. To create an anti-Russian foothold, creating an anti-Russian foothold in Ukraine took much longer. It took the 2014 Maidan and 8 years of punishing operations in Donbass in violation of the measures ratified by the UN Security Council. I would like once again to remind you of the cynical admissions of Merkel and Hollande, who told that they only needed for the Kiev regime to win time to boost its potential, its military potential against Russia.
So he started with Yugoslavia, then he went to Bucharest summit 2008 of NATO, promising those guys emboldening the Georgians and the Ukrainians. Then Saakashvili in 2008 started, he invaded South Ossetia, the Russians retaliated, smacked him back, and now he got to the Ukraine issue.
Among the thwarted attempts to solve security problems is also the Cossack Memorandum that was aimed at resolving the Moldova problem 20 years ago. Back then, Brussels blatantly torpedoed the document, already ratified by Tiraspol and Chisinau. And now they are torpedoing the 5+2 format, the only thing left to resolve the conflict. Basically, Moldavia is about to fall victim to this strategy. In every country where Western emissaries are working now should think NATO countries blocked the agreement on adaptation and ignored Russia's specific proposals on restoring a control regime over conventional armaments in Europe. The US actions also torpedoed the Open Sky Treaty and devalued a number of other fundamental documents aimed at promoting security. The true intents of the West politicians once again manifested when the US once again rejected Russia's proposition regarding legally binding guarantees of security in Europe. They didn't even want to talk to us. In response to my...
That was until December 2021. In January, NATO said, no, go and play your little violin at a different table. We're not going to do anything with you. And again, this comes from the Russians.
To ministers of foreign affairs of the United States and NATO countries as of January 2022. The question, how do you see the obligations not to boost your security at the expense of others? None of them.
That's another principle that they kept using. Boost your security to the expense of others, which is boosting NATO security at the expense of Russia, or boosting Ukraine's security at the expense of Russia.
Didn't even bother to answer. Instead of that, we were sent empty papers from the NATO Secretary General that didn't even address this issue. NATO doesn't care what presidents may sign. This is how the group of countries treats this organization that they obviously don't respect. Their desire to attack Russia's economy, the United States and their satellites, took thousands of sanctions, basically eliminating cooperation between the West and the East. The Kiev they invest into eliminating their competitors, including those in the European Union. And Europe is bearing the brunt of the consequences of the Ukrainian conflict. and rejecting the forms of economic partnership that for decades have been ensuring the prosperity of the European Union. It seems that the European Union gave up the goal of serving the well-being of their citizens and turned into an aggressive geopolitical project.
The European Union basically is just the lapdog of the US. So, as many say, until Germany gets its sovereignty back, they're going to be the biatch of Al Capone.
Afraid of OSCE, I must speak about the human dimension. Even here, there is the problem of objectivity and equal rights. EU observers go to elections with already prearranged observations and reports. The Moscow mechanism with biased experts is also serving a political agenda, and the media freedom representative keeps mum when media are being repressed. For many years, we haven't been able to coordinate the agenda on the human dimension due to the reason that some delegations stubbornly refused to include the issue of neo-Nazism there. And that's amid a surge of Nazi ideology observed in Baltic countries, and thus other forms of racial intolerance. They glorify Hitler collaborationists, they tear down monuments to Soviet liberating soldiers.
Этого нам прислали пустые бумажки от внешнеполитической службы Евросоюза и генсекретаря НАТО, которым послание даже не адресовалось. Суть позиции Запада – наплевать, что там подписали наши президенты и премьеры в ОБСЕ, юридические гарантии безопасности может предоставить только...
Well, the translator went to sleep. Let's see.
Не менее печальная ситуация во второй корзине. Ситуация во второй корзине ОБСЕ. В стремлении обрушить российскую экономику США и их европейские сателлиты ввели против России
In their desire to torpedo Russia's economy, the United States and their ally introduced thousands of sanctions.
В общем регионе. Киевский режим, инвестиции Вашингтона в свои эгоистичные интересы сдерживания России и решение собственных проблем за счет других, включая устранение экономических конкурентов, прежде всего в лице Европейского Союза.
Including the elimination of economic competitors in the US. Despite all that, the European Union...
Personally, I speak Romanian and English. Obviously, I speak Romanian better than English, but if I would have to translate someone speaking Romanian into English, I would have no problem being faster than this guy. I don't know where they got these people, and I'm assuming this guy might have the same paper translated in English from Lavrov. No, pre-submitted. He might be he might be reading, but if he translates it as he speaks, he's doing a very poor job. I've heard so many people who translate like this live, and like, what the hell? I can translate that. I can translate that, and vice versa. If I have to from English into Romanian, I can be fluent, like no problem, like continuous, like he speaks the same. This guy is like, is he a poor reader or he doesn't get it? I don't know where they got these people.
Still plays its role, bearing the brunt of the consequences of the conflict, and refusing the forms of economic partnership that have for decades ensured the well-being of the European Union. It seems that the European Union has given up its initial goals of providing the well-being of its citizens and turned, largely through efforts of Brussels bureaucracy, into an aggressive geopolitical project.
Эту корзину наполнили большим набором обязательств, адресованных, подчеркну это особо, всем странам-участникам.
Speaking of the human dimension,
Проблема равноправия и объективности.
there is also the issue of equal rights and unbiased work. Most of the initiatives are aimed at countries westwards of Vienna. And the Human Rights Council, with biased experts, also serves the political agenda. And the Commissioner for the Freedom of the Media keeps mum when other media are repressed.
Что некоторые делегации упорно препятствуют включению в нее проблемы неонацизма. Это при том, что в Европе, в первую очередь на Украине, в Прибалтике,
some organizations stubbornly refuse to include the issue of neo-Nazism on the agenda, even and other forms of racial intolerance.
Закрепляют эти преступные действия законодательно.
The neo-Nazi regime now ruling in Kiev has outdone even the Baltic countries in their actions to legally eradicate everything related to Russia. In their denial of everything Russian-related, their denial of Russia's contribution to history, people are being banned from learning in Russian.
It is true that if other countries that are not vassal to the United States of America would do what the Baltic states and Ukraine did to the Russian-speaking population, let's use that garbage of expression, then Americans immediately will point that out, and they will sanction, and they will regime change, and they will do this, and they will do that. But in this case, they're allowed.
Also, facts confirming that the OSCE is keeping silent. They were silent even when due to absolutely the Brussels also was silent and said nothing about the need to respect the numerous UNESCO and UN and EC conventions that guarantee.
You see over here, that's written Poland, 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 Poland right here. So that they boycott it, because the best way to solve a problem is not talking to one another. Narcissistic.
Equal rights to all ethnic minorities. Just recently, Chairman of Rada Stefanchuk said that there are no Russian minorities in Ukraine and there can't be any, and I quote, "By all appearances, the head of Ukraine's parliament has never read the following: guarantee the free development and protection of Russian language and other minority languages, to develop its national identity of all ethnic minorities. There cannot be any restrictions or privileges on the basis of ethnicity. We guarantee the right to study in one's native language." This is a small excerpt from the current constitution of Ukraine that nobody has changed and that Zelensky and Poroshenko used to bring their oaths. Everybody is silent.
If you don't, as a country, have a direct interest in this, and most of them don't have, they don't even listen to this guy. I mean, I am interested in what he says, and I'm listening and thinking, kind of boring, because I know all these things, but maybe that's why. But it's not something that is really catchy, that makes you pay attention. Imagine someone like the guy from San Marino. He doesn't give a squat. Look at him. He's like, Olive, man.
Amid this silence, the Kiev regime had is waging a campaign against the Russian Orthodox Church, including physical punishment of priests. So all these violations of human rights began not in February 2022, but right after the bloody state coup in February 2014, when the neo-Nazis took the power.
I'm pretty sure that most people over there think, what are you talking about coup? What coup? What? I don't expect Mr. Gigi from San Marino to really know what Lavrov is talking about. What coup in Ukraine? What year? Was this before the First World War? Was it in the Middle Ages? What the hell?
Having torn up the agreements signed by countries including France, Poland, and Germany, who swallowed this humiliation. And now they're contemplating an expedited route for Kiev to the European Union.
So Poland was also in the Minsk agreements, not only Germany and France.
It's a shame. The question is, why do we need this flawed human rights protection institutions that are obviously aimed to privatize international organizations to serve their agendas? The current situation is a direct result of our Western neighbors' attempts to ensure their dominance, blatantly using OSCE to aggressively push through their agendas and deliberately disrupting the fundamental principles of consensus. Any unbiased person understands that solving issues of European security is not possible this way, but still, Western countries are killing off the last chances for successful work without Russia and Belarus. They're drawing another borderline, another line of separation in our continent. And the instigators of all this should think very well how this goes together with the ideals that drove forward the authors of the Helsinki Congress and the Paris Charter. Well, it is a tradition that speeches here should complete on positive notes, but I don't see any good reasons for optimism, as OSCE is being turned into a NATO appendix. And let's face it, the organization is on the brink of a disaster, so a question is bound to arise. Does it make sense to invest efforts in its rejuvenation? Will it ever be able to adapt to ideals of world development? Will it ever be able to serve as the platform based on the principle of equality of all member states? So far, there has been far more questions than answers. In the meanwhile, life goes on, and processes of Eurasian integration and equal cooperation, based on a fair balance of interests, are developing in constructive formats on our continents, in spite of OSCE's going deeper and deeper into the confrontation agenda being forced onto it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker.
All right. Well, he was not as bad as I thought he would be, and that is blaming too much. I expected him to be more vitriolic, let's put it this way, but Lavrov is a diplomat. That's an example of a diplomat. He did not use any foul language, and he didn't even go too deep into details. He was a general exposure or exposition of the European Union, who basically this organization is a vassal appendix, as I said, NATO appendix, and I think I agree with that. for the one of the reasons is Mr. Blinken showed up over there. Are you in Europe? He owns Europe. They own Europe. So I thought it was very interesting. I expected him to be more, but probably more, I don't know, on an offensive. But he seemed mild. At least this is my impression. This is what I got out of that. I heard him more, not aggressive, but more pointed, and in interviews and other statements when he made some speeches. And but nevertheless, probably he's just thinking it's not worth it. These guys don't really care. But you know, I think he's still doing a job, so he should do his best. So I don't think he can think it's not worth it. No, you just do your best. You promote your country's interest, and you express your concerns in front of everybody as you see them. If you don't do that, then the people, and this is an opportunity, people will not be able to understand what's Russia's position. Now, I'm familiar with everything he said over there, everything he said. And I imagine if someone did not know anything about it, would be too much. What do you mean? Especially a guy who was, let's say, under the influence, not of alcohol, but the media in the West, would hear certain examples that he went over, historical events that he went over, like, for instance, Yugoslavia or Georgia, or the coup from 2014 in Ukraine, the Minsk agreements. And if they don't know anything but only this narrative from here, they will not be able to make any sense of what the hell are you talking about. Everything is great. You are the bad guy. Why are you even here? All right, well, we'll see if this video will be able to go through. I've never done the whole speech of an official before, but we'll see. That is usually for copyright and things like this, which I don't think Sputnik will have a problem with that, since Sputnik is banned in some free world, countries of the free world, and unions. And not only, I expect it to go just nicely, but you never know with these imbeciles. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.